I'm so excited to chat with you because you have this beautiful new LP coming soon. And I'm curious, often people tend to describe music in a certain way. For this new album, do you have a way that you describe, excuse me, for this new LP, do you have a way you would describe the music on Here I Am?
I mean, all of my music I usually describe as Americana, which is a huge bucket to put music in. It's basically, a mixture of country and blues and folk and all of these different elements, which really does describe my music because I've always been influenced by all of those. Um, I mean, the thing that I think sets this one apart is that it's a very personal record for me, like that I have gone through different phases as far as like what I've written about, what has been inspiring me. And I think, coming out of that fun pandemic that we had a few years ago and reestablishing myself in Nashville and in the midst of all of that, like it's been a few years of really processing and um, getting to know myself in ways that I didn't realize I hadn't yet figured out. And so that's really what this record is mostly about.
Who were some of the musical influences you had when you were growing up?
I had very good musical influences thanks to my parents. I grew up, really, the reason I picked up a guitar to start with is because my parents were always sitting in the living room strumming guitars, playing old Graham Parsons and Emmylou Harris songs and Linda Ronstadt. And, so growing up, there was all this great music. So I grew up idolizing Emmylou and Linda Ronstadt and Dolly Parton and Bonnie Raitt and Janis Joplin. Like I was just in love with women with big voices, and that's what I wanted to be. And so I started singing basically as soon as I could talk. And so I would say that those have always been my biggest influences. These days it tends to be Brandy Carlisle and Patty Griffin. Again, like big voices and great songs are what draw me in the most.
You have the single Letting It Go out now. Where did the inspiration for this come from?
Well, again, it was a very personal song where I was realizing in the midst of moving to Nashville, and I went through some various heartbreaks, and I am a very sensitive person, as a lot of musicians are. And
Sure.
I find that, when something hurts me, I hold on to it for too long and it ends up hurting me more. And I'm trying to learn to let things go and move on from these things that are sometimes holding me back from experiencing more joy in the future. So I just started writing that song because I was just kind of fed up with just letting my brain ruminate on these things that had hurt me. And I didn't want to do that anymore.
What kind of fan response have you already been receiving to the song?
Oh, so great. I've had several people who, like my Kickstarter funders helped me, make this record. And so they've gotten to hear the whole record. And I've had
Um,
many of them reach out to me and say that Letting It Go is their favorite song on the record, which I didn't actually expect.
really?
It wasn't like our favorite, that we imagined like that people would necessarily really connect with, even though it's one of my favorites. Absolutely. We put it out as the first single because we felt it was really strong, but people are really connecting to it. And I'm very happy with that. Like I recorded this record a year ago now. So I've been sitting on these songs
That's right for a while
just
at this point.
being like so anxious to share them with everyone and realizing, like now that I get to finally share them with people and that they're responding so well to them, it's just the most beautiful thing. So I'm really happy. And then after Letting It Go, actually last Friday we released another single called Imposter, and that one has also really been getting great response.
Well, that begs the question then, if that wasn't what you thought the favorite was going to be, which song did you?
Well, Imposter was one that I thought it's one of my favorites. And then we have one more single coming out June 7th before the record comes out called Bonfire, which is also probably my favorite. It's like a tie between Imposter and Bonfire. And so those are the last two singles. And Imposter is again another, very personal
Looking.
song. Yeah, Looking is another great one. I know. So we actually ended up not making Looking a single, but I love that one too. I mean, it was so hard. Like I want to make all the songs singles.
Sure. Sure.
I wish we could because all of the songs mean so much to me, and you put so much thought and effort into every song, and it is kind of a shame that you only get to put out a few as singles and then just hope everyone else finds the other ones on the record. But yeah, I'm really proud of these songs, and I'm so thrilled that it's only going to be about a month now before the entire record is out
Yes.
and everyone can hear it.
Well, Melody Walker assisted on Bonfire and Elliot Bronson assisted on Looking. What is your songwriting process? Do you tend to have lyrics before you can craft music, or the other way around, or is there not a specific way you write all the time?
There isn't a specific way, although, I have written with people who always want lyrics first. And usually when I start, I'm not a lyrics first person, but I am usually like an idea or a hook first. I usually have an idea of like what I want the song to be about, but I might not necessarily know how I'm going to say it. And so usually that I sit down with a guitar and with like an idea in mind and just start strumming until something feels like what I'm trying to say. And then the lyrics sort of fill in from there. So, um, and when you're co-writing, it's totally different. Everything is just depends on how your co-writer's feeling, how you're feeling that day. Usually, again, you start with some little nugget of a song. Either it's a line that you're just like, this is going to be the song, or a feeling or like an experience you had, and that's usually what kicks it all off. But then as far as, yeah, how much you flesh out with the lyrics before you start the music or vice versa, just sort of depends on the day.
I know that you had help on the production side as well with Nick Buddha. How much of a hand, though, do you tend to have, or how much of a say do you tend to have when it comes to the production side of the music you make?
I mean, Nick was fabulous to work with because he's just the nicest guy. And I will say that every record I've put out, it always feels like, co-producing, because ultimately you're the songwriter. And when you have a good producer, they put a lot of stock into your ideas. And so he would come up with a lot of these production ideas. But if there was ever anything that I'm like, no, or if I had another idea, I'm like, but what if we did it this way? He was always game for going down that route and making sure that we explored every idea that I had also, so that I felt really good with what we came out with in the end. So he was so wonderful to work with, and he's a session drummer in town who has drummed with everyone from Martina McBride to Dolly Parton to he was on like Taylor Swift's first 5 records, I think, and right now he's in Kenny Chesney's band, and so he knows how a song should go. And he got together the whole band of these just incredible session musicians in Nashville who I think they all have Grammys. They're all producers themselves too. So it's
Mm.
just like, it was this room full of people who just make songs all day long. And it was quite a magical experience to be part of.
We talk about the singles before that are standout and favorites. Are there specific songs you're looking forward to performing live?
Oh man. Yeah, I mean Bonfire is one because we wrote that as kind of like a vocal powerhouse kind of song because my friend Melody is one of my favorite singers in Nashville. Melody Walker, she co-wrote that song with me. We are both also yodelers, and so Bonfire has an element of yodeling, just like voice breaks to add to sort of the vocal flourishes, which was really fun to write. Like we had known each other for years and we had never gotten together to write a song until we wrote Bonfire. And so when we did, we're like, okay, we came up with that vocal hook before we came up with a single word. We just started like riffing
Wow,
on notes basically, and then we're like, what should that say? And we came up with Bonfire, and the whole concept just sort of came around that vocal hook that you'll hear once the Bonfire comes out.
it's amazing. Will there be a tour to accompany this new LP, or are you working on some shows in the near future?
Lots of shows. There will be a big tour. In June, I'll be in California for basically the whole month, about 3 weeks, because I used to live in Southern California, so that's still kind of one of my best markets out there. So I'll be going to spend a
Sure.
lot of time out there playing for fans. And then in July, I'm going all the way up the East Coast, all the way up to Maine, and then over into Canada, and then back down through like Ohio. And we're working on more tours. We have like a Pacific Northwest thing going on in the fall. It looks like I'll be in the Southwest in the fall also,
Oh,
like
nice.
New Mexico, Arizona. So we're gonna try to hit most of the country, if not all this year, going into next year. But yeah, I've actually been at home really since the winter for the most part, just kind of getting this album ready. And so I'm so anxious to get on the road and play it for people because really performing is what I love to do more than anything. I love writing songs, but I honestly, getting all this album stuff together, I could do without. I just want to play the songs for people. So I'm glad that we're finally getting to the point where the songs are going to be out and I just get to go sing them and share these stories with everyone.
Who would you love to collaborate on a song in the future?
Oh geez, that's a good question. If I had like, my pick, I would say probably someone like Brandy Carlisle or Brandy Clark. Her last record that came out last year was one of my favorites of the year. Like that album has some songs on there that just I was like, how did you get into my brain and like write my exact story? It was incredible. Like I was going through this breakup at the time where I feel like some of those songs were written exactly about me and I was just like, "Oh my gosh." So, yeah, Brandy Clark is up there. Gosh, I mean Patty Griffin, she's not out on the road as much these days, but I think she is one of the great songwriters of, the last 100 years. And those would probably be my top three if I had to pick right this moment. Um, but yeah, now that I'm in Nashville, I am trying to, get out and meet more people. It is incredible how sometimes you can pitch a co-write and they might say yes. That's how I ended up writing, with Crystal Bowersox here in town too. I met her
Wow.
and I just said, "Hey, you want to write a song?" And she's like, "Sure." And now we're friends and Elliot and Melody. I'm also friends with Ranger Doug here in Nashville. If you've ever heard of Riders in the Sky, because he's a yodeler also. I had to go to a show and introduce myself to him. I'm like, I'm a yodeler. And of course, so
Let's match
we
up.
yeah, exactly. So we've been writing together. We have this great song going that I think we might record as a duet in the future. Just to say,
Oof.
there's no official release of that, and we don't have any real plans, but I think it's going to happen.
Okay, well, I've got my fingers
Um,
crossed. So
yeah,
manifesting and everything.
yes, because he is such a fabulous person, and it's such a great thing just to be friends with him, and hear some
Oh,
great stories.
I'm
So,
sure.
so it's really a treat being in Nashville, where so many great songwriters live, and so many of them are pretty down to earth and willing to just give you a shot.
Collab on. Yeah, it's so
Yeah,
great.
absolutely.
Well, sounds like you're in the right city for everything your dreams are.
I think so. I am glad I'm here, even if I moved here like 3 months before the world shut down, and I
I
wasn't sure if I'd made the right decision. But a few years later, it feels
full
wonderful.
circle moment.
I know. I'm very glad to be where I am and getting to experience everything that Nashville has to offer.
What would you like to say then to everyone who are fans and supporters of the incredibly beautiful music you make?
Honestly, just thank you, because on it, like if I didn't have the fan base that I do, I wouldn't be able to do this. I'm able to tour across the country and people show up to see me sing. I'm able to raise money to put these albums out. It wouldn't be possible without the kind of fan base that I have, which I'm just eternally grateful for. So